Hey everyone, have you ever had the experience of watching a movie you really didn't enjoy just to go online to find out what other people had to say about it, only to realize that it was pretty well received by the majority of critics and audiences alike? Now let's get one thing straight. I used to be obsessed with everything having to do with aliens when I was a kid. Whether it be conspiracy theories about UFOs, movies, television shows, you name it. I kind of grew up and I actually stopped believing in these kinds of things, you know? Now don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't believe in the existence of any other form of intelligent life in our universe besides ours. It would seem pretty impossible for it not to exist. But as far as little green men walking around visiting our planet, well, let's just put it this way. I'll believe in aliens and I'll believe in ghosts and I'll believe in witches and all that when I'll see them. Until then, they make for good entertainment, they make for good stories, but that's about it. Nevertheless, I was still looking forward to Midnight Special because of its writer and director Jeff Nichols and its marvelous cast, all of whom have done excellent work in the past. The story is about a father, played by Michael Shannon, who together with his son and with the help of his wife and a very close friend, have to go on the run, being pursued by the government, federal and local officers, and some sort of strange cult of some kind. The reason for this being that the boy possesses some very mysterious and special powers, and therefore everyone wants to get a piece of him. While it is made clear that he is this man's biological son, it is alleged that he is from some sort of other plane of existence to where he needs to get back to. So you see, it's very similar to Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial, which is, not necessarily my cup of tea, but hey, it's a formula that works. Unfortunately, this film is also quite similar to another film, which was released last year actually, Tomorrowland. Deservingly enough, that film received some very mixed reactions. It's not a bad film, it's not a good film, it's somewhere in between. Most people's disappointment with Tomorrowland were due to the fact that it was a film which committed a crime a sort of adventure film like this should never commit, and that's being way too ambiguous. You spent a huge chunk of the film, like the first half, or even I think the first 2/3 if I remember correctly, just simply not knowing what's going on, the film just simply not telling you what the hell is happening. However, Tomorrowland had one redeeming quality which Midnight Special lacks almost completely, and that's having one main character who's equally as confused and equally as dumbfounded about everything that's going on as we are as audience members. And in a film like this, in this kind of science fiction, mystery, adventure type of thing, we need that. We need that one character who's like the everyman, the normal person, like us, that one character towards whom we can gravitate to. Now, Midnight Special is a much more serious film than those other two I mentioned. It's basically more of a drama than anything else. The reason why I felt that the characters were somewhat unrelatable wasn't because of the fact that they lacked certain human characteristics. Quite on the contrary, these characters and the way these actors play them equals as some of the most natural performances I have seen in movies in general. They are so human, in fact, that they barely even talk to each other. They barely even communicate with each other using words. There is a complete sense that these relationships run deep, and that these characters know everything there is to know about each other, and that their communication can rely solely on just simple looks, simple gestures, by which they can understand each other perfectly. But as for someone viewing the movie, you don't really get the sense that you get to know these characters. You don't really get the sense that you got to find out anything about them. And that, for me personally, got really frustrating after a while. Now, of course, it's not that complicated. You can figure out some of the pieces of the puzzle without them necessarily having to say it. Like, for example, Joel Edgerton's character is obviously a good friend, probably even the best friend of Michael Shannon's character. It's obvious, they didn't have to explain it to you. But as far as a lot of other things go, your guess is as good as mine. Like, how does this boy has these powers he has? Where does he come from? Why is he here? How can he be simultaneously the biological child of two people and also come from another plane of existence? What is this other plane of existence? Is it another dimension? Is it another time? Does he come from the future? Is it another planet? Is he an alien? The film really gives you a lot to just simply guess about, and I don't really think it gives you enough for you to be able to completely fill in the gaps. It can pretty much be up to interpretation. The boy could be from any of those places I just mentioned. And also the reason for why he is here is left unexplained. For Christ's sakes, as cheesy and as corny as some of the explanations of most sci-fi films go, at least they try to explain something, at least they try to come up with something. This film goes the complete opposite direction and feels like it feels like a blank canvas which is given to you. There's also a paintbrush, but there's hardly enough paint for you to be able to draw anything else but stick figures. The film is like very low-key, gloomy, slow, quiet. It seems like it's taking itself very seriously, and then occasionally, I think twice it happens, there's a joke. And those jokes, I mean, at least one joke in particular felt really awkward, really out of place. I mean, it makes sense, don't get me wrong. It makes sense why that character in that specific moment would say what he says. And that's the thing, I think everything these characters do pretty much makes sense in the long run, but at the same time you feel like not only are you one step behind, 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 steps behind these characters, you're like not even in the same hemisphere as them because you don't know anything about them, you don't know them. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make, is that I couldn't feel like I could gravitate towards these characters. That's what makes it so hard for me, so puzzling actually, because it's not a bad movie at all. I think the acting is phenomenal in it. I think it just basically comes down to taste. Even though I'm a fan of this director, Jeff Nichols, I think he's one of the best directors to come out of the United States in recent memory, this was just simply not my cup of tea. So that's it for this review, folks. Thanks for watching as always. I will see you later with other reviews. Goodbye.